Why is it that the most powerful men don't fall on battlefields but in bedrooms? Why do rulers lose empires not to armies, but to a single kiss, a whisper, or a seduction? Today we confront a hidden danger, one that most men don't even recognize: how the failure to understand feminine power becomes the root of their collapse, and why Machiavelli saw it coming centuries ago. What if I told you that the greatest mistake a man can make isn't in war, or politics, or betrayal? In love. Men have always viewed women through soft eyes: adoration, idolization, even desperation. But Machiavelli saw through it. He didn't see a goddess. He didn't see a prize. He didn't see a fragile flower needing protection. He saw something much more dangerous. A force of political power. A force that doesn't need a throne to rule. A presence that moves quietly and invisibly through corridors of power, yet can bring down empires with a single whisper. In The Prince, Machiavelli didn't speak of love like a poet does. He treated it as a risk. A region to be governed, not surrendered to. His silence on women wasn't a lack of knowledge, it was deliberate, because where other men saw beauty, he saw opportunity. Where others saw purity, he saw calculated drive. Where others were distracted, he became more focused. History is full of women who ruled without ever being queens. They wore no crown, yet kings followed them. Helen of Troy didn't fight, yet her beauty launched wars. Cleopatra conquered with charm. Catherine de' Medici played the game of power with marriages and manipulation. These women didn't command armies, they were armies. Machiavelli understood this invisible influence. A woman could appear as a companion but function as a strategist. She could begin as his muse and end as his master, and the man, blind by passion, would call it love. But it was politics all along. He warned us. Love, especially when it comes from a powerful woman, is rarely innocent. It is measured. It is tactical. Men fall because they think women enter the game of power to be protected, but many enter to conquer. And the man who sees her only as a lover forgets he might also be a player, and often a dangerous one. Pay attention. Not all battles involve swords, not all deaths draw blood. Some wars are fought in intimacy. Some assassinations happen through whispers, and the man who believes he holds control, simply because he is loved, is the one easiest to control. Machiavelli's lesson is simple: only power respects power. And in the court of influence, charm is often a weapon in disguise. A woman who knows her strength will use it, and the man who doesn't understand her tactics becomes her pawn. Today's men are no different than the princes of the past. They seek safety where they should stay alert. They put down their armor when affection is shown. They abandon strategy when comfort is offered. They mistake validation for loyalty, and in doing so, they hand over power without resistance. Understand this clearly. This isn't about hating women. It isn't about villainizing them. It's about recognizing what Machiavelli understood long before dating apps existed. Women are political beings, fully capable of influence. To treat them only as emotional supporters is to ignore their full potential. And when you underestimate someone's potential, you give them control over you. A fool trusts blindly, a ruler never does. Even her silence holds intent. Her smile can be a tool. Her tears may be calculated. Her touch might seal an agreement. She's playing a game most men don't even know exists, because acknowledging it would require confronting their own vulnerability. Machiavelli described human nature as self-saving, always seeking advantage, always trying to survive. Do you think women are excluded from this truth? No, they just express it with more grace, more subtlety, more effectiveness. Modern men suffer because they mistake affection for authenticity. They believe in illusions. They romanticize submission. They forget that real power isn't loud or forceful. It is calm, elegant. It wears perfume, not armor. Men don't fall because of women. They fall because they idolize them. There is a difference between loving someone and worshiping them, between being in love and being consumed. Machiavelli knew the difference. He saw the truth that most men won't admit. The moment a man places a woman on a pedestal, he places himself beneath her, and no man rules from his knees. We live in a time where men are taught that their highest purpose is to love deeply, to protect endlessly, to prove themselves constantly, that the more they give, the more deserving they become. But Machiavelli would have seen that mindset for what it is: weakness. The man who feels the need to prove his worth is already at a disadvantage. The one who works to earn her glance has already given up his crown. When you idealize a woman, you lose clarity. You stop seeing her as she truly is, and instead view her through the lens of fantasy. She becomes perfect, untouched, a savior, a light in your darkness. But the truth is, no one is perfect, no one is pure, and no one exists to complete you. Machiavelli understood that illusions don't destroy men because they deceive, but because they soothe, and men are far more addicted to comfort than they are committed to truth. Especially in matters of love, especially when desire burns deep, especially when loneliness whispers that maybe she can fill the emptiness that power never could. But power does not plead. It does not chase. It does not bow to a fantasy. Still, look at the modern man, scrolling, liking, longing. He doesn't search for a partner. He seeks a redeemer in red lipstick. And in this pursuit he forgets the most ancient law: whatever you worship owns you. This is the true danger. The woman herself, but the image you place upon her. You give her your drive, you hand her your strength, you let her define your value. She doesn't steal your throne, you offer it to her willingly. And when she leaves, you collapse. Not because she was everything, but because you believed she was. And when that illusion shatters, all you're left with is the emptiness you tried to bury with her presence. Machiavelli understood the price of fantasy. He said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But men, when it comes to love, choose to be loved at the cost of their own rule. They forget love isn't pure, it isn't selfless, it isn't fair. It's human, and humans are flawed, which makes love political. To idolize a woman is to deny her full nature. You turn a blind eye to her capacity for ambition, for cruelty, for self. You deny her power not out of reverence, but out of delusion. And no prince who denies reality holds his crown for long. He thinks she's different, that she won't betray him, that she is the rare exception. But belief is not fact. Hope is not a strategy. Machiavelli believed in facts, in nature, in patterns. And the pattern is this: the man who romanticizes a woman places shackles on himself and calls it love. What starts as admiration quickly becomes dependency. And in the world of Machiavelli, dependency is the death of power. If her approval guides your choices, you've lost leadership. If your emotions rise and fall based on her attention, you are no longer sovereign, you are emotionally enslaved. This is how kingdoms fall, not by revolution, not by invasion, but by the slow erosion of a man who forgets who he is. A man who puts her above reality. A man who mistakes weakness for love, who calls obsession loyalty, and clings to pain as if it proves devotion. Once you place her on a pedestal, you'll justify anything, ignore all warning signs, compromise every standard, and you'll think your suffering is noble, that pain somehow makes you worthy. But power is not split by gender, is split by perception, and perception is a weapon. Machiavelli didn't write bedtime stories, he wrote cold truths. He didn't feed egos, he revealed them. And when it came to the tension between men and women, he understood what many still deny. Behind every romantic bond is a negotiation, a tug-of-war, a battlefield where someone leads and someone follows. Modern men, blinded by fantasies, walk straight into that war without weapons. No armor, no awareness, only compliments, apologies, and desperate wishes to be chosen. They forget what Machiavelli knew well. True power is never requested, it is assumed. A woman's greatest strength is not brute force, not even overt manipulation. It's her ability to command attention without effort, to bend influence without speaking, to make a man question himself by choice. Machiavelli would not call this evil or malicious, he would call it natural. And nature doesn't care about feelings, it favors the cunning, the alert, the strategic. Men fight battles with steel, women often fight with silence, with withdrawal, with beauty. Both are weapons. The tragedy: most men don't know a war is happening. They believe in balance, where only leverage exists. They believe in fairness, where advantage constantly shifts from his hands to hers. Machiavelli never claimed men should dominate women. That would be ignorance. What he said was sharper: never give someone power over you unknowingly. But today's men surrender it without realizing, not because they are weak, but because they are unprepared. When a man fears losing her more than she fears losing him, the balance shifts. When he changes his direction just to avoid upsetting her, the throne beneath him begins to fracture. When his identity is built around her approval, he no longer belongs to himself. That's the dynamic few are brave enough to acknowledge. Publicly, they call it partnership. Privately, they feel the weight of performance. One acts like a king but lives as a servant. She sets the emotional climate. She dictates the intimacy. She holds the power to bring either harmony or chaos to his inner world. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must choose fear over love if both cannot exist together. But look at men today, obsessed with being adored, addicted to approval, trained to be endlessly agreeable. The modern man fears being disliked more than he fears being dishonored. He's been conditioned to believe that his worth depends on her comfort, her peace, her smile. But power doesn't belong to the one who gives the most. It bends toward the one who can walk away without flinching. Here lies the deeper truth. Between men and women, power is no longer intellectual, it's emotional. Men once fought for land, legacy, and sovereignty. Today they chase the right to feel worthy. They've been told masculinity must be softened, that strength must be censored, that assertion must be apologized for. So what do? They give away the throne, not through battle, not through revolt, but through quiet surrender, dressed up as virtue. They stay silent and call it empathy. They offer sacrifices no one asked for and call it love. Machiavelli would have laughed at that because he despised women, but because he despised illusion. He believed any structure of power had to be grounded in truth, not hope. And the truth is this: once a woman realizes she can influence a man emotionally, she will consciously or not test how deep that influence runs. Not because she's malicious, but because she's human. Power that isn't used becomes boring. Power that's never tested becomes invisible. And so, he begins to shrink. Not in size, but in presence. His back bends, his voice lowers, his choices weaken. He glances at her expression before he speaks. He asks for permission before he moves. He becomes a child wearing a man's skin. A Machiavellian prince would never live like that. He doesn't wait to be chosen, he chooses. He doesn't fear. Retreats, he retreats. He doesn't negotiate with uncertainty, he identifies it or cuts it loose. Because power is not kind, it is not forgiving. It does not pause for the unsure. And here is the brutal reversal. The more he hands over his power, the less desirable he becomes. Not just in her eyes, but in the eyes of the world. For what is a man without center, a man who folds under pressure, a man who exists only to please? He isn't loved. He's pitied, or worse. Machiavelli saw this dynamic long ago. It lived in Rome, in Florence. In every royal court, the man desperate for approval was always the first to fall. The one who waited for a green light always lost command. The power dynamic between the sexes has always been a game of tactics. One leads, one follows. But today, men no longer lead, and most don't even realize they're in a game at all. The greatest threat to male power has never been violence. It's the illusion that he still holds power long after it has been stripped away. This is the tragedy of the modern man. He's been trained to notice everything but what is silently undermining him. He prepares for war in boardrooms, in politics, on battlefields, but ignores the war within his own home, his own relationships, and his own mind. And the enemy is not the woman. It's his refusal to see that women, like all people, compete. They strategize. They play to win. Machiavelli warned rulers to expect deception, to study it, to predict it. But today's man throws out the entire strategy when it comes to love. He believes love is above manipulation, that kindness ensures loyalty. He believes if he just gives more, loves more, forgives more, he'll be protected from betrayal, from disrespect, from abandonment. But he won't be. Not because women are cruel, but because he ignores the first rule. Machiavelli understood, everyone has a motive, everyone plays a part, and everyone manipulates some with words, some with silence, but always for survival or advantage. Modern men, raised on fantasies of harmony, without competition, enter relationships unarmed. They assume innocence before caution. They idealize intentions. They confuse nurture with submission. They think silence means agreement, and in doing so they leave themselves wide open. Not to swords, not to poison, but to something much more subtle, emotional warfare. We must remember, the one who looks less powerful often learns to rule through invisibility. Just like the fox doesn't show its teeth until the prey is trapped. A woman who knows her worth doesn't beg for control, she evokes it. She doesn't issue command, she becomes the reason they're followed. She doesn't dominate with force, she steers. With presence, she will win battles without ever raising her voice. While he praises himself for being in control, Machiavelli saw it with sharp clarity. He spoke of the lion and the fox not as rivals, but as necessary tools for survival. The lion uses force. The fox survives through cunning, subtlety, and misdirection. The lion thinks in brute strength. The fox thinks in perception. What modern men forget is that most women have mastered the fox while men still believe that strength alone will protect them. But strength without vision is weakness. It's a shield with no eyes. The fatal blind spot of modern men is built on a comforting illusion that goodness protects you from pain, that providing earns you admiration, that honesty guarantees loyalty. Machiavelli would laugh not because virtue has no value, but because virtue without realism is destruction. Think about it. In a culture where women are taught to use beauty, emotion, and status as tools, what reason would she have to play fairly if a man can't even tell a game is being played? A woman knows her worth, not by what she says, by how men respond. If a man gives everything without testing her commitment, he teaches her that commitment isn't necessary. If he overlooks warning signs in the name of understanding, he shows her that there are no consequences. And where there are no consequences, there is no respect. Machiavelli taught that respect is earned through clear roles, discipline, and self-control. Love without strength invites ridicule. A leader who can't say no will soon find himself led. A man who tolerates manipulation teaches others to use it against him. Yet today's man is told that drawing boundaries is toxic, that speaking with authority is aggression, that a woman's dissatisfaction is his personal failure. He becomes a hostage to her feelings and calls it love. The modern man has become easy to manage, not because he has no power, but because he refuses to use it. He chooses comfort over confrontation. He chooses approval over vision. He chooses false peace over real respect. And in doing so, he leaves the door wide open for someone else to define his value. Women are not the enemy. Machiavelli never claimed that, but ignorance is. And today, a man's ignorance of female strategy is a wound he inflicts on himself. Men no longer study behavior, they study feelings. They no longer analyze motive, they try to appease it. They no longer lead, they perform. He doesn't observe her patterns, he doesn't test her loyalty. He doesn't notice the shift in her tone, her attention, her mood. He simply trusts blindly, helplessly, eagerly, and that eagerness makes him predictable. And predictability, whether in politics or in love, is punished. Because if you are predictable, you are easy to control. And once you are easy to control, you are easy to discard. Machiavelli understood a hard truth. Those who don't shape perception will be shaped by it. And the man who tries to be the safe choice, the nice guy, the supportive partner, becomes invisible to the very women who long for decisiveness, direction, and presence. He becomes the placeholder, the fallback. The maybe she keeps around until someone stronger shows up, not because she's cruel but because he never made her respect him. Here lies the paradox. The more he tries to earn her validation, the less she offers it. The more he chases her approval, the more she doubts him, the more he fears losing her, the more she tests whether he's worth keeping. And with each failed test, she pulls back colder, sharper while he grows weaker, more confused, more emotionally fragile. You were never taught to watch, you were taught to serve. But in every palace there are those who servant, those who rule, and those who can't see the game being played are always the first to lose it. Men were warned. Not by the broken, not by the bitter, but by one of history's clearest thinkers, Niccolo Machiavelli. He didn't hate women, he understood them. More importantly, he understood how blind men become when they refuse to see the reality of the game there. And this isn't a call for hatred, it's not a war between sexes, it's a wake-up call. A demand for men to stop waiting for love to protect them from betrayal, to stop believing that submission earns loyalty, to stop pretending that virtue, without power, matters in a world shaped by strength, perception, and positioning. Machiavelli knew one thing with certainty. If you don't understand the motivations of those closest to you, you will be ruled by them. He warned rulers to fear the fox as much as the lion. He warned men to be alert when charm hides intention. Yet the modern man has drowned out that warning with comfort, desire, and self-deception. He's traded his crown for attention, his wisdom for affection, his instincts for ideals. And now, he wonders why no one takes him seriously. Why is he abandoned? Why is he exploited? Machiavelli's warning still cuts through the centuries not as an act of cruelty, but as a mirror of truth. Power itself is not wicked. What destroys men is their refusal to see. So ask yourself, are you the one moving the pieces, or the piece being moved? Because the fox still walks quietly, wearing a soft smile, and her silence isn't peace, it's certainty. She already knows how the story ends. It is better to be feared than to be loved, if both cannot coexist, and it is deadly to trust blindly in either one.